Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q1 FY22 earnings conference call of Sequent Scientific Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Abhishek Singhal. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
A very good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Sequent Scientific's earnings conference call for the first quarter ended financial year 2022. Today we have with us Manish, Sequent Managing Director, Sharath, Joint Managing Director, and Tushar, CFO, to share the highlights of the business and financials for the quarter. I hope you've gone through our results release and the quarterly investor presentation, which have been uploaded on our website as well as stock exchange website. The transcript for this call will be available in a week's time on the company's website. Please note that today's discussion may be forward-looking in nature and must be viewed in relation to the risks pertaining to our business. After the end of this call, in case you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the investor relations team. I now hand over the call to Manish to make the opening comments.
Thank you, Abhishek. Good morning, friends. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us for this Q1 call. Joining me on this call, as usual, are Sharath Narsapur, our Joint Managing Director, as well as Tushar Mistry, our CFO. We are meeting in quick succession this time, as we had just met about 40 days back. So my address will be short and focus on some key highlights for the quarter, as also the strategy or way ahead. Q1 has been one of the most difficult and challenging operating quarters, as we saw multiple challenges right from muted demand, inflated cost structure across businesses, as well as significant execution challenges. Overall, in that context, the performance in this quarter was a bit of a mixed bag for us. While formulation business grew about 15% on constant currency basis, there was a decline in API business after many years of consistent growth. We closed the quarter with a revenue of 3,200 million or 320 crores, which broadly translated in a growth of 9% in constant currency terms. This is slightly lower than where we would have liked to be at this stage. The overhang of costs all around also impacted our profitability, with EBITDA pre-ESOP charges being about 20% lower at rupees 356 million or about 36 crores. Tushar will cover the financials in greater details in his remarks. Coming to the respective business segment, the growth of 15% in formulation was primarily led by continuing outperformance in India, as also in Latin American markets, primarily Brazil. Our India business continues to do well on the track of strong outperformance in the cattle business, as well as recovery in the poultry side of business. Brazil also recorded a strong growth driven by recent launches. While Turkey performed ahead of the market, the depreciation in Turkish lira took away all of that growth. Our performance in Spain dragged our European performance, even as Sweden and Benelux did well. We expect recovery in Spain starting this quarter, which is Q2, which should put our largest region back on growth track. API, as I mentioned, was muted this quarter. This was primarily due to the low offtake by some customers, as well as operational challenges at both our end as well as our supply chain partners. As I had mentioned in the last call, we had more COVID cases this time in April and May as compared to the entire 12-month period prior to that. An equal number of employees actually had to be quarantined due to COVID in their families. We also suffered 2 unfortunate casualties. However, the situation has been in control since June, and we also draw comfort from the fact that more or less our entire eligible workforce is now vaccinated with at least 1 dose. Notwithstanding the numbers, we continue to move in the right strategic direction in terms of quality of business, with ever-increasing contribution of our regulated market business, which now stand at 72%, as against 66% in the corresponding quarter last fiscal. We commissioned the pilot plant as well as additional clean room at Vizag, leading to about a 20% increase in capacity during the quarter. We expect a strong recovery in our API business in the second half of the current year. There have been some significant strategic developments on the formulation front in line with our blueprint for Sequent 2.0. I'm pleased to announce that we have now launched the PET division in India, initially with 8 headquarters. I'm also pleased to welcome Alexis Gaux in the organization as Vice President Commercial to spearhead our formulations business. Alexis brings in over 20 years of experience with leading companies like Verbec and Seva, having led businesses in multiple geographies, including Europe, Latin America, as well as Southeast Asia. His last role, or his most recent role, was with Verbec, where he was responsible for global marketing department on food producing animals. Based in Barcelona, Alexis will drive our business in our key markets of Europe, Turkey, and Latin America, including global marketing, especially for our value-added R&D portfolio under development, as well as entry into key new markets of UK, Germany, and Southeast Asia. Overall, while we had a slower start to the year than our expectations, we stay confident and on track of achieving our financial and strategic objectives for the year. I would now like to close here and hand it over to Tushar for his comments.
Thank you, Manish, and good morning all. While Manish has given insights on the operational performance, let me discuss the financial performance for the quarter. Our revenue for the quarter has grown by 8.4% year-on-year on constant currency basis to INR 3.2 billion. Formulations business continues to drive the growth with strong 15% growth year-on-year, supported by stellar growth momentum in India, LATAM, and Brazil. Europe business continues to remain muted due to subdued performance in Spain, whereas Turkey business was affected due to adverse currency movements. Overall, we also saw price pressures on both input prices across both API and formulation business, and also some specific operating costs like furnace oil as well as logistics costs. EBITDA excluding ESOP costs stood at INR 356 million, while the reported EBITDA came in at INR 200 million, after considering the ESOP cost of rupees 156 million. This ESOP cost, as has been explained earlier, is a non-cash cost to account for the recent grant of ESOPs to key employees, with almost 50% of the impact coming in the first 12 months. Further, the EBITDA is also after considering additional cost of rupees 58 million incurred during the quarter, as spelled out in slide 13 of the investor deck. What we also missed this quarter was other operating income, which was almost 29 million last year, as RoDTEP rates are yet to be announced by the authorities. On the balance sheet side, we witnessed a slight increase in working capital as we built strategic stocks of some of our key products in line with our business plan. We have also consolidated our minorities interest partners in Turkey, Belgium, and the Netherlands during the last fiscal year, and should be completing minority stake buyout in Brazil in the current quarter. I would like to conclude my remarks by stating that this quarter has been challenging. We are extremely focused on execution on both business and cost fronts, even as we continue to invest in and pursue the strategic objectives around Sequent 2.0. Thank you, and we can now open the floor for Q&A.
So, Rita, can we take the Q&A, please?
Thank you very much. So we'll now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Satwik Sen from RH Perennial Fund. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. So there was a note in the audited financial statement that there was some revenue recognition which was overstated in the last quarter. So could you throw some light on it? Because it was of a decent size of around 50 crore for profitability.
50 crore of profitability. I don't know where you're getting those numbers, but if you recollect in the last call, I had mentioned that we had detected certain instances where revenues in respect of certain sales transactions were recognized on dates earlier than those allowed by group revenue recognition policies. It is in light of those that this has been the revenue and the P&L has been restated. So these were timing issues pertaining to the API shipments in terms of where the revenue should be recognized. So there were certain gaps in the documentation, and on account of that, after a complete review, we have undertaken a correction of the entire process of recognition, as also the impact of the same on the P&L. Tushar, if you want to add anything?
No, that's right. Yeah.
And most of it would have been done, right? So there would be no such thing like in the further quarters. That is what I'm assuming.
So if you look at again the notes of last financial year, we had spelled out the complete implication for each of the quarters of the previous year. There is no continuing implication because all of it was corrected within the year, but they were within the year corrections between the quarters. So Q1 sales went into Q2 in a way. Therefore, if you look at the disclosure or the notes of the last financials, all aspects have been detailed out in that.
All right. Perfect. That was helpful. All the best for the future.
Yeah. There is no continuing impact. Everything has been resolved within the previous year.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Jolyon Lu from 16th Street Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yep. So thanks for the call. I have 2 questions. I think first is more on our observation, and I wanted a commentary on it in terms of certain animal managers selling off their captive plants and declare very aggressive restructuring targets. I think might be the cause of our supply chain rationalization. Maybe you can give us more colors around this, and maybe what gives us the confidence that demand should return in the second half of the year for the API. Thanks. That's the first question.
I'm not sure whether we could understand the question properly, but I'm assuming you are referring to the impact of COVID on operations, or is it something else?
No, I'm thinking more in terms of the supply chain rationalization that was alluded to, for API weakness. So maybe just more details or colors around that.
Yeah, understood. So it is last year around March and April is when the first wave of COVID had struck, and there was, I believe, enormous uncertainty in the marketplace. What we believe happened at that time is many companies, including such as us, overbought certain inventories to secure plant operations. And on account of that, once things have stabilized, the purchase has come down, which is what we believe has happened on the API side of our business. So there must have been some inventory built up undertaken by our customers in Q1 and Q2 last year, given the uncertainty. That rationalization is occurring at this point of time, leading to a slowdown in procurement. I believe the demand will be back to normal, probably in the second half, if not earlier. Does that answer?
Okay, sure. Okay. And I guess in terms of the ESOP, what's the nature of it? And it seems like it's treated as a one-off. Maybe you can give more details around that, please.
Yes. So this is as part of the change of control that occurred in the company last year. the new promoters had rolled out a new ESOP scheme. It underwent a process of approval through the shareholders. Consequently, from the time they rolled out to the time of approval, there was a significant change in the stock price. And therefore, while the vesting price of these ESOPs were in line with the entry price of Carlyle, but by the time the final shareholder had come, approval had come, there was a price difference in that period. Using Black-Scholes model, these ESOPs are valued. The fair market value is arrived at, and the difference of fair market value versus the vesting price, those charges have to be booked into the P&L. These are non-cash charges, and the way the model works is almost 50, given that these ESOPs vest over 5 years, almost 50% of the cost gets booked in the first year or the first 12 months. So that's the implication of the ESOP cost that we have booked during the current quarter. It started from March 2021. So 1 month cost was booked in previous quarter. The current quarter reflects the peak cost, which is 3 months of cost, and it will continue till February of next year, and thereafter it will start coming down unless new ESOPs are also granted to new employees.
Got it. That's very clear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishal Manchanda from Nirmal Bang Institutional Equities. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for the opportunity. With respect to the API business, can we expect on a full year basis, would you grow over your FY21 base, or would that be difficult to achieve?
No, certainly there will be a growth over FY21. But right now, guiding to what kind of growth is slightly difficult, but we are hoping that it should not be very different from the past.
Okay. So, so we have been growing around, say, 20-25%. So, can we look at that kind of a growth number?
No, I think even if you look at our last year, it was a mid-teens growth in the API side of business, and we certainly are working towards achieving that. I'm not committing that we should achieve that, but we certainly have clear plans on how do we go back to that level of growth. I do believe that the quarter is more an anomaly and not a trend.
Got it, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one more on the Turkey business. So it has sharply corrected. So as you pointed out, there are supply challenges and customers and challenges on the customer front too. But anything are there product level disruptions, demand disruptions, or so how is it? So can we see kind of higher demand in subsequent quarters to make up for what we have lost in first quarter?
This is pertaining to formulation, is that right?
Yes, formulation business.
Yeah. No, formulation, I don't think we have really lost too much, excepting in Turkey, wherein we had operating challenges. Our order book is full, and order book is already in line with the business plan for the year. So we have no issues in terms of achieving what we have envisaged in Turkey. It's all about what we missed out in the previous quarter will be covered up in the rest of the year, because the order books are already in place.
Great, sir. And the new facility, tablet facility that has come up in Turkey, would that also contribute during the year?
For within Turkey, yes, it is going to contribute, but what we have highlighted is now we have a EU GMP approval for that tablet facility. So we will be initiating filings for EU from that facility, which is what is going to be more valuable, but it will still take some time to fructify in terms of commercial numbers.
Right. But in Turkey, this can start contributing in the current year.
Absolutely.
And any color on what kind of peak revenues we can look to generate, maybe 4 years or 5 years down the line from this facility?
No, so it is not a new facility. It is an additional line per se. See, we have been growing at 20% plus in Turkey, and we continue to maintain the same growth rate. I mean, in terms of our expectation, what we are adding in Turkey is export business, which is over and above the Turkish growth rates, and that is something that will get facilitated by the approvals that we are getting. Difficult to put in a number, but clearly it is a part of a broader strategy to make Turkey as a manufacturing hub for all markets other than US.
Got it. Yeah.
Vishal, you would also kind of appreciate that we have a multi-capability in Turkey in terms of manufacturing, and almost 8 or 9 manufacturing lines, most of which are sterile manufacturing. So that makes us it makes it a very strong manufacturing hub for us.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Vishal.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Sheth from Quest Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Bharat.
Manish, can you give some more color? Say you in your in the opening remark you said that we have for strategy 2, part of strategy 2, some formulation strategy has already been in place. So how that will drive? That is one. Second, our injectable business, if you can give some detail, what stage we are, German plant, and when do we really will start supplying to US? And third, on the Vizag facility, supplying to regulated market, particularly USA, and the FDA inspection stage.
Yeah. So let me first start with the formulation strategy or Sequent 2.0, as we had spelled out last time. Fundamentally, it's a focus strategy. Sterile would be our core focus area of domain in terms of product development and manufacturing area. And to that extent, we are looking to expand both our Germany facility, primarily for US, as also our Turkish facility for rest of the world, including EU. You would also recollect that we had spelled out very clearly the markets that we had chosen to expand, which obviously included US, UK and Germany for front-ending in Europe, and also select Southeast Asian markets, Indonesia and Vietnam to be specific, for footprint expansion. We also had decided to dive deeper in the 3 key strategic markets that we have, including Brazil, Turkey, and in India, including foray into pet animal segment in these markets.
Correct.
Okay, so that was the very clearly articulated strategy. It was a very sharp and focused strategy for Sequent 2.0.
Correct.
To that extent, what we have already kind of initiated in this quarter is we have launched a pet division in India.
Okay.
We have started work in Germany for the project expansion for US FDA standards, not only for US FDA standards, but more about capacity built up, because volumes in US are very, very different, and the pack sizes in US are very, very different from the rest of the world. Everything in US is much bigger, as we are all aware of. So work in German facility has been already started. We have also initiated or expanded our entire R&D framework for formulations, including value-added generics.
Correct.
I won't be able to give more details on that for strategic reasons. In that context, we also kind of fast-tracked EU GMP approval for Turkey, including the renewals, because clearly we are building Turkey now as global hub of manufacturing for all other markets other than US. And finally, I think your last question was towards the API side of business and the Vizag plant.
Correct.
Vizag is already US FDA approved since 2016.
Correct.
And it has been also re-inspected and reapproved in 2018.
Okay.
So our entire API strategy has been built around that. We continue to stay approved and stay the only US FDA approved veterinary API facility from India. What has slightly slowed down is validation at the customer end because of COVID.
Okay.
Because as API supplier, finally customer also has to validate our APIs in their formulations before they can start using.
Correct.
Last 12 months, as you would understand, that every company has suffered on execution, so has our customer. So to some extent, both on account of rationalization of their supply chain and some delays in validation at customer end, you could see a muted API demand in the current quarter, and we are very confident that the API business will bounce back fairly strongly in the second half of the year.
Okay. So if you can give little, when do we expect this US, from the German supply of this injectable or sterile business to start delivering?
So,
some time frame?
I believe it will be FY24 before the first commercialization occurs in US, because while we have already made our first filing for US,
Okay.
In the current scenario, you would expect that FDA may not visit for next 12 to 18 months.
So is
So
it
therefore,
because of this US FDA not visiting, or this 24 also because of the validation and getting approval for the whatever we have filed the project up?
no, this is predominantly for the US FDA not visiting. See, right now FDA is not traveling.
Correct.
And animal health will obviously not have that high a priority vis-a-vis the other plants that they have to audit once they start visiting.
Okay. Okay.
So on account of that, we believe that we will be slightly later in the queue in terms of their priority.
Okay. And is that fair assumption that with the API say bouncing back strongly and formulation we have already grown 15%? Of course, you said it's in constant currency. Despite there was a growth in Turkey in constant currency, there is a decline. So how in rupee value overall company growth we can look forward?
Yeah. Bharatbhai, if you see you won't see much difference between our constant currency growth and the reported growth as well. So while formulations grew 15.3% on constant currency, even the reported currency growth is 14.7%.
Okay.
Okay, so it is not very different. Collective growth is about 9% for the organization. That is because of the slight decline on the API side of business. But as API business recovers, we believe that the overall growth will not be very different from the growth that we delivered in the last few years for the overall business.
Okay, great. And on any color on the EBITDA side?
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr.
Sorry.
Sheth. May I request you to please rejoin
Okay.
the queue? We have participants. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, you may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of VP Rajesh from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, Tushar and Manish. Just Manish, trying to understand this API a little bit better. Was it a supply chain issue, or was it a demand issue, or was it a logistic issue this quarter? If you could just give more color on that.
So it is a bit of both, and I will have my colleague Sharath to explain the supply side challenges that we had. But there was a subdued demand, as I mentioned, bit coming from rationalization of supply chain at the customer level, and there were also execution issues because whatever demand we had, also we could not service the demand for our own execution challenges, and Sharath can explain a little more about the execution challenges given the quarter that we had. Sharad, if you...
So basically on the supply side, the situation which we faced was faced across the industry, eminently driven by uncertainties during COVID, lockdowns. So we also depend on several of our CMOs for supply of input late stage intermediates for making API. They also did undergo the same challenges. Therefore, that was a muted, supply there. Plus, also there was pressure on, as Tushar mentioned, on the cost side. So availability as well as cost. So both of them played role in, playing sort of spoil sport in execution.
I see. And a second question on the option side, is it typical that you would be able to write off 50% of these ESOPs in the first 12 months itself? I would think they would have gone over the period of the vesting schedule.
Yes, Tushar. Yeah, Rajesh, actually, it goes as per the vesting period for each year. So the way it works is, first year you have the expenses hitting for the first vesting that is happening, plus all the other 4 vesting that is happening. Second year it will only hit for the 4 vestings. Third year it will only vest for the 3 vestings that are happening. That way the maximum impact is in the first year, and then it keeps on going down over a period of time, over the vesting period.
Okay. So, and Rajesh, if I explain it a little more, see, since it vests over 5 years, and 20% is in the first year, at the end of first year. So the entire cost of first vesting will hit in the first year itself. The second year vesting, 50% of the cost will hit in the first year and 50% in the second year. The third year of vesting, a third of the cost will hit in the first year itself. So effectively it becomes 100% of year 1 vesting, plus 50% of year 2 vesting, plus 33% of year 3 vesting, plus 20% of... So that way, if you add up, the first year impact is the maximum.
Understood. But the total dilution is same as what you had indicated previously, right, in the shareholding base. There is no change beyond that, like in terms of number of issuance of shares.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Raghav Soni from Deloitte. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. First of all, good morning. Sir, just want to get clarity on note number 7. Although you have discussed it, but was it a one-time event or it's going to take the hit in subsequent events also, subsequent quarters? That is the first question. And sir, can you give the guidance on margin? Even before the ESOP hit, it was very low. It was close to 11.8. Can you give the guidance on the margin? That's it from my end, sir.
So I think I clearly spelled this out. Whatever was the impact was limited to last year and within the quarters of last year. There was no impact even in Q4 of last year, but within the quarters there was a kind of a readjustment of P&L, all of which was disclosed in the annual filing. So does that answer your first part of the question?
Yes, sir. It answers the first part. And second part on the guidance, sir.
Or second part on the guidance, I will split this into 2 parts of business. One is the operating part and second is the built up for Sequent 2.0. On the first part of business, we stay very confident of delivering, if not the same, better, or if not better, but at least similar margins as last year from the operations front. There may be some mismatch within the quarters simply because there is a lag between cost and by the time you can start recovering or pass on to the customers. There is always some lag. There is a second part of that, which is the cost built up for the future for Sequent 2.0. Now that is something which is still work in progress. There may be incremental costs coming on R&D front, on employees front, and as we build up the organization, that is something for me, it is difficult to guide you at this point of time. And therefore, what you would have seen is we have brought in this slide 13 equivalent in our investor deck, which we will keep disclosing. We will not adjust the margins, or we are not calling them exceptionals or whatever. They are part of our strategy, but we will certainly spell it out for you to take a view on those additional costs that we would have built up during the quarter or the year.
Perfect, sir. Thanks. Just want to clarify, these questions are asked in my personal capacity as a retail investor. Thank you very much, sir. My questions have been addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hardik Vora from Union Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Actually, my question is in line with what the earlier participant asked. So these margin guidance that you gave, that we would come back to at least the last year's level, this guidance is by when will we touch that level?
What I'm saying, while it is very difficult to guide for on a quarter-to-quarter basis, I think at an operational level, our EBITDA margins will not be any inferior to what we showed last year by the end of the year. Certainly, a lot of this growth or improvement will be back-ended, because you would understand or appreciate that the incremental contribution of API business in margins is much superior, given that there are no sales and marketing costs related to a B2B business. So certainly the catch-up will be more back-ended, not front-ended. But at the end of the year, I do believe, and I have fair confidence to say, that our EBITDA margins from operations will not be very different from where we ended last year.
Okay. So now, if I remove the one-off cost that you have highlighted in the slide 13, and even the ESOP cost, it seems that our total cost seems to be growing at the pace of between 12 to 15%. And our revenues historically have grown at that line. I mean, the consistent growth rate. We've just seen this one blip now coming. So the question is, before this ESOP plan was announced, and before we had a conversation, you had guided that there's a 2x revenue growth potential in 5 years from FY20 as the base. So I'm just trying to guess that that still holds, right? That and a 20% EBITDA margin potential in 5 years. This is just some short-term pressure that we are seeing in the profitability. Otherwise, going forward, that strategy is not changing.
You're absolutely right. In fact, obviously, as I said, in Sequent 2.0, our aim would be to better that and not be satisfied with that.
Right. And Manisha, I'm sorry, I actually missed the beginning part of the call. So these costs that are highlighted in slide number 13, while one of them is clearly indicated, I do not understand the nature of the rest of them, the new initiative and the one-off exception. So if you could just highlight what they are or.
I mean, there are multiple new initiatives currently happening in the organization, both on strategy front, product selection front, R&D front, as also on the processes and the systems of the organization, because we are obviously scaling up and preparing for a much larger organization. So all the new initiative costs are pertaining to that. There are obviously also inorganic initiatives that company keeps looking at, and there are costs that come on account of that. The one-offs and exceptionals are on the other side, which are sometimes there is past expenses and all that. So that is coming as far as one-offs. Tushar, you have better color on the one-offs and exceptionals?
Yeah. So costs, which some of these costs pertain to last year, which has come in the current year, because the way we, like in case of one of the service providers, he's charged us for the entire year in the current, for the past costs. Also, in some of the geographies, we have taken certain provisions for for certain inventories and all, which are coming here as one-off. So all that is built up into this one-off and exceptional.
Understood. So of these, the non-recurring ones are the 7 million and the 23 million one, right? 28.5 million as such would maybe recur for some time before they start getting absorbed in the incremental business.
Yeah, but we do believe those will start dipping, as you would have seen that they are already lower than Q4.
Okay. So so even on absolute terms, they will dip going forward.
That's correct.
Okay. One final, if I can squeeze in, the capex plan, has that changed over the last 2 quarters? Any change on that front?
On what front?
Capex plan.
Capex, the capital expenditure.
No, I think we stay in line with what we had guided.
Okay. Thank you for that. If I have more questions, I'll join back. Thank you so much and all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vikas Jain from Financial Portal. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Gupta and Mr. Tushar. Though my question had already been taken up by the earlier participants, so I don't have my question now to be answered. But I wish you all the best for the upcoming quarter and hope the guidance works and we perhaps see better margins and better profitability in times to come. Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishabh Kochar from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So I have 2 questions. First, sir, on the European side, we have launched 3 products last year. So there is a dip in the overall performance. So can you throw more colors on that?
Sorry, come again?
On European business, we have launched 3 products last year and we saw a dip. So can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, we are not able to hear you properly. Can you repeat or can you take the mic closer to your...
Yes, sure. Is it clear?
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah. Sir, on the European side of the business, so we have launched 3 products last year. Despite that, there is a dip in the overall performance. So can you throw more light on the overall performance? What is impacting the European business?
Yeah. So in Europe, basically, we are present in 3 geographies or 3 prominent areas. One is Spain, which is our largest business, followed by Benelux, and finally Sweden. As I alluded in my opening remarks, both Benelux and Sweden have done well for us and grown ahead of the market during this quarter. Where we have suffered is in Spain, which saw a reasonably about a 7% decline in the business. Now, while we had new launches, we also suffered from 2 other areas in Spain. One is there was hyper competition in select range of products, the powder products, oral powder products. And second is we also had certain supply chain issues from our other third-party suppliers in Spain. So collective impact of that was that we had a decline of about 7% in Spain, which led to the overall decline in Europe, in spite of the new launches. Having said that, a lot of those situations have been corrected. We have now started receiving supplies from our third-party suppliers, as also our own powder sales have started picking up. So we do believe Q2, you will see a reasonable recovery as far as our European operations are concerned.
Sir, should we expect that the European segment would grow higher than the industry level going forward?
As of now, we do believe we should grow faster than the industry for the rest of the year in Europe.
Okay.
You have to be aware that European growth rates are always muted compared to the rest of the world. So
right.
It will still be a single-digit number.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And sir, on the second question is on the API side. Sir, long-term outlook for the API was 20% CAGR. Given that there is some demand rationalization, will that impact the overall thesis for the long term, or is it intact?
In the long term, I don't think there is need to make any changes. What has happened in this quarter and probably will continue for the first half is more transitory. The long-term strategy stays intact. We do expect the API business to start recovering from second half and accelerate going forward, because we have not lost any business, or there has been only deferment, both caused by inventory built up either at customer end or delays in validation at their end. There has been no loss of business. So therefore, our guidance remains intact for the medium to long term.
Okay. So if I may ask one more question. So are we facing any, so given that there is a rise in the COVID cases in the China, and if supply disruption happens once again, so what would be your guidance going forward on that?
Very difficult to give a guidance around COVID, honestly. So I would stay away from that. I don't think any one of us were ready for wave 2 or the intensity of wave 2. First time, I must admit, as a leader, there was a sense of helplessness at some point of time, because otherwise our firm belief was that as a corporate, we will be able to help all our employees and find solutions. But this was the first time wherein even as a corporate and with all the connects we had as a corporate, there was little we could do, given the intensity that happened. Having said that, I do believe that the world is better prepared, including ourselves. You would have also seen that there is an inventory built up that we have undertaken at our own end, which has so we have done. We have taken a lot of care in terms of how to secure our business. Having said that, there are no foolproof mechanisms. So certain business risks and uncertainty we have to live with. But whatever have been the learnings of the past have been incorporated in our business model, including some short-term tactical decisions around inventory.
Okay. Thank you so much. All the best for the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishabh Sharedalal from Pravin Ratilal Share and Stock Brokers Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Just a small question on the operating expense part. Just pardon me if my question is repeated. So our operating expense have increased by roughly 14 odd crores in this quarter. So if you can just guide me as to what is the reason for this increase?
Yes, Tushar, can you take this?
Yeah, so if you refer to slide 13, part of the explanation is given in slide 13 for that, wherein there are costs which are incurred towards new initiatives. There is COVID death compensation, and there are certain one-offs and exceptional costs which are sitting in that operating expenses. Others are in line with our business expansion.
Yeah. One thing also you have to bear in mind is, to some extent, costs in Q1 last year were slightly understated, because that was the peak of first wave of COVID and there was a complete lockdown. Okay, so many operating costs could not have been incurred, especially on sales and marketing front. So to some extent, there was a bit of a understatement of Q1 cost from a normal running operations basis.
Right. So, just correct me if my understanding is wrong, but if, in the coming quarters, we will not be having such kind of one-offs at, these exceptional costs and some of the new initiatives, and also the fact that the new ESOP scheme that you have given to the Carlyle employees due to this transfer. So, in the coming quarters, we would be seeing higher earnings. Is my understanding correct, or are some of the costs going to be incurred in the coming quarters also?
No, certainly your understanding is correct. We certainly improved earnings going forward. This quarter has been exception, both on the cost front and also on the revenue front. So if you look at our overall revenue, this is much lower than what we have been normally delivering, which is closer to 3.5 billion INR per quarter. This has been lower. So as the revenues recover, and also some of these one-offs go away, you will certainly see a reasonable increase on the operating performance side.
Right. And just a small question, if I may squeeze in, we as a group had, even partnered with Zoetis to, sell some of their drugs. We are the distributor of those drugs. So presently, I do understand that it does not contribute significantly to our work. But, coming in the coming quarters, let's say 4 quarters, 5 quarters down the line, what kind of an impact do you see in the revenue from operations from this particular area of business, or is it not much?
No, see, our current arrangement with Zoetis is limited to India and is limited to select range of products. So unless the arrangement expands to either additional products or to additional geographies, the impact will continue to be minimal. It is material from an India perspective, but in the overall context of the organization, it is not significant.
Sorry to interrupt. May I request Mr. Shardar to please rejoin the queue? We have participants waiting for it all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishal Manchanda from Nirmal Bang Institutional Equities. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. Sir, with respect to the pet division initiative, could you kind of give some color on whether it has to do with nutritional aspect or it has to do with therapeutics? So, are you venturing into prescription drugs, or you would look at kind of nutritional products for pets?
No, so we are fundamentally a pharmaceutical company, and our focus would always be the therapeutic or the pharmaceutical or prescription drug, doctor-led business. We are not getting into pure nutritional side of business.
Okay. And you have a bouquet of drugs that you would start selling immediately.
That's correct. So we have launched the division with 8 headquarters and 4 products. Obviously, we launched at the peak of COVID in a way. So the customer connects are initially difficult, but as we gain more and more confidence, we'll be adding more territories as also adding more products in that business.
Okay. And sir, this could require a larger field force effort versus what we typically do for veterinary animals?
No, not at all. In fact, it requires much smaller field force because it is still a very urban business. So only typically you start with category A cities, and gradually you may go to some of the smaller towns, comparatively smaller towns, but you'll never go to while the rest of the veterinary business is extremely rural. So it is a different skill set and different kind of people we need to hire. In fact, vis-a-vis the other veterinary part of business.
Okay. And sir, if we look at the competition, would this be these larger names, Zoetis, Elanco in this category, or there are also smaller Indian domestic names that you would compete with?
So I think more or less it will not be very different from what we are competing with in the rest of the business. So there are obviously all the MNCs, and there are a couple of Indian companies as well.
Okay. So would you be kind of so it would be difficult to launch niche products in this category. So you would have identified high growth therapy areas and probably looking at those.
Yeah. And we are also looking to leverage our own R&D pipeline here. So we have a multiple strength here. Not only we have our own R&D pipeline, we also have a lot of products outside India which we are looking to bring in, many of which are not available in India at this point of time. So I think we are very well placed as far as our pet business in India is concerned. Of course, it will take time to build up.
Got it, sir. Thanks very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Karthikeyan from Suyash Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks. A couple of things. Excuse my belaboring the topic of APIs, but just wanted to understand what kind of schedules would you have in terms of advance notice? Meaning, is there a predefined schedule, or would it be, how exactly would it work? So, as things stand today, how far ahead are you able to look in terms of scheduling of shipments?
I didn't understand your question. Can you repeat?
So I was asking you on the API side, would there be a predefined schedule for shipments? And if yes, how far ahead are these schedules defined?
Yeah. So I think, and I don't think our API business is any exception. There are always two buckets to API business. One is part of businesses which are driven by long-term contracts. These are multi-year contracts which come with a forecast. And the forecast is, there will be annual forecast with a firm forecast or firm commitment for 1 quarter or 2 quarters. Okay, so that would be roughly about more than 50% of our business will be on that kind of business. And then there are other regulated business, especially the generic companies. They don't give long-term commitments, but they are committed to buy from you given that you are part of their regulatory filing.
Right.
So another 25% of our business will be on that account. And finally, 25% of our entire business would be what I would call as more spot or unregulated market customers, wherein these customers have not much regulatory requirement and they will buy on a need basis. So all in all, I think where I'm coming from is there is a fair degree of certainty about 75 to 80% of the business. And what you always are on a lookout or fill up is the last 20-25% of the business, which comes from more of spot kind of customers.
Right. And you would say that the shortfall has been on category 1 or category 1 and 2 or all 3 categories?
No, it will be more on category 1 and 2, which is more coming from timing, as I mentioned.
Right. The second part that I wanted to understand is you talked about profitability coming back. Obviously, I'm ignoring one-offs. When you said that, did you mean on a quarterly basis or on an annualized basis?
Quarterly is a very difficult game to play. I would always request and insist on evaluating on an annual basis.
Yes. No, so when you said your profitability will come back to at least last year's levels, did you say that on a full year revenue base, your profitability will be restored, or did you mean that for the quarter, the revenue profitability will come back to last year levels?
No, I'm talking for the full year numbers when they are displayed or disclosed. It will not be very different from where we had been last year.
That's a steep climb actually, so that's impressive.
Yeah, there was a steep decline also this quarter. So I think you have to understand that businesses like us are highly fixed cost intensive business. So if the sales is not in line with what you envisage, then the margins get impacted. And same is on the other side. Moment the sales recover, the margins expand fairly rapidly.
Fair. One last quick question, I'm sorry. On the pet business side, this doesn't lead to any kind of conflict with your partnerships with the likes of Zoetis, right? The fact that you're launching some pet products, even if it's in, say, relatively non-core market?
Not at all.
Great. Thanks very much.
Industry, I think this is a standard trend. We all compete and also cooperate.
Correct. But I was just trying to understand that, you're partnering with them in India, for example. Therefore, I was asking you this question.
Not at all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you and best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the last question for today, which is from the line of Rajamohan Venkataraman, and it's professional investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Manish, previously to a question in one of the previous calls on reaching the top 10 animal health manufacturers, or roughly about $500 million in revenues, you had indicated to the consulting firms coming back by the middle of this year to give you a broad objective guidance. Could you give some objective outlook, and also based on Carlyle's initiative, is this $500 million target a say 4 or 5 year kind of purview that you reach that scale, say by 2025-26?
Yeah. So Rajmohan, I think this will entail a slightly prolonged conversation. So can we take it offline, and I'll be happy to talk to you at your convenience? Yeah, because it entails a fairly lengthy answer.
Sure. The second part was you have indicated to the upfront investments by Carlyle that will happen in the next 1 or 2 years. Broadly, would it be largely on the formulation side or on the API side? And does this have the possibility of pushing up revenue growth by upskilling and upscaling to beyond the mid-teens growth that you have indicated to?
You're absolutely right. First, most of the additional investments will occur on the formulation side of business, whether it is inorganic acquisitions or opportunities, whether it is capability built up, both in terms of market footprints as also skill sets, as also on the R&D side of business. So we will be moving from pure generics to specialty generic kind of product, with, of course, balancing the risk and reward ratios in that profile. So that is one part of it. Certainly, it should kind of boost up the business in the later part of the strategic plan. It will have no impact because nothing in pharmaceutical other than acquisitions can reflect in your numbers in the first 2 years. But I'm very, very confident that whatever initiatives we are working on will translate into faster growth for the business from what we had kind of envisaged in the past, in the last 2 years of our business plan.
So this essentially would be playing out from, say, FY24.
That's correct.
Okay. One final question was Carlyle's current comfort with their stake in the company. Are they comfortable, or are they still inclined to increase their stake further higher up? Obviously, I think it's a very sensitive question for you to answer, but still some subjective opinion on this.
My personal opinion is that Carlyle would love to own 100%, but clearly that is not feasible. But I would rather encourage you to ask this question directly to Carlyle.
Okay, Manish. Thank you very much, and best wishes for the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajmohan.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as this was the last question for today, I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your questions, and we do hope we have been able to answer most of your queries. While the performance in the recent quarter was challenging, our continued belief in our unique and well-diversified business model, as well as our execution capabilities, gave us confidence to deliver consistent growth and business outcomes, even as we invest in new business segments, geographies, people, and assets to realize our vision for Sequent 2.0. I would also like to thank all our stakeholders for their continued support throughout the difficult times of COVID and otherwise. Thank you once again, and we can now close the call. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Sequent Scientific Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.